Well, hello, and welcome to the PGH Writing Command Center for another podcast episode from God Bless the Keg Publishing, LLC. I can't decide between that music and the other one. I kind of... I guess they're about the same. Anyway, I am John Hausleben of God Bless the Keg Publishing, LLC. I am the flagship author, chief photographer, music reviewer, music critic, your host for the podcast, kind of do everything guy, with a little help from my friends at God Bless Keg Publishing LLC. And we are thrilled you're here today. If this is your first time tuning into the podcast, well, then welcome. If you're a repeat listener or a subscriber, or you listened to us yap before, well, welcome back. And we appreciate the support, and we really appreciate all the comments and suggestions. Thank you very much. It's not taken lightly. We really appreciate all the feedback. So here we are, and I'm going to use the word nostalgic. This was a nostalgic week for Paulie. And it's funny how these circumstances just fall into place. And people always ask me, Paul, where do you get the inspiration for not only the theme and the subject of a podcast, but, you write all the time and you're doing all this other stuff. And it just comes organically. It comes from living my life. It comes from the experiences. So it's very, very easy. I'm very lucky. I've never gotten writer's block. I can always write about something. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be good. Yeah, sometimes it's trash and I end up deleting it, but I always have some kind of inspiration, be it a conversation or person I met or something I observed. So, Callie Rose, God Bless the Keg Publishing's Do Everything gal, she always says that my character, Detective Odell, is really me, because Odell is a keen observer of everything, as was like Sherlock Holmes, take note of everything. She says Odell is really Paulie and Paulie's Odell, because you're always scanning stuff and you're always looking at stuff and you're always absorbing stuff. So that's where I get subjects. So this was a nostalgic week, and I'm going to use the word nostalgic because yesterday, and I'm recording this on a Sunday, yesterday, Saturday, which was the 9th of August, was Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. And I'm a Yankees fan, as my family is. My cousin David is a fervent Yankees fan, and we text during the games. And my old man was, the greatest Yankee fan of all time. My Aunt Ada, we come from a long line of Yankee fans. But anyway, Old Timers Day really ignites a lot of memories and a lot of nostalgia. So before I get too deep into that, let's talk about nostalgia. Let's get our little Orphan Annie decoder pins out, because it's time for a word from our sponsor. And we are proudly sponsored today by Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated, the leader in technical consulting, facility maintenance, management, property services throughout America. And now CFG is proud to announce their new pre-construction services department. Pre-con services for your residential projects, your residential renovations, light commercial projects, light commercial renovations, all offered up by the great Steve McMillan. Let's give it up for Steve at CFG Incorporated, and they are very proud of that. And congratulations on the new initiative there. And we thank you for sponsoring this podcast, and check them out at www.corporatefacilitiesgroupfigure1.com. That's www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com on the web. And thank you to Steve, Lydia, and Liliana at CFG Incorporated. And I did have a random person ask me how they would go about sponsoring the podcast. You can email us at godblessthekegpublishing@gmail.com. That's godblessthekegpublishing@gmail.com. And if you want to email us with comments and feedback, there's also a site on the website for the podcast. Or you could use the Gmail and yell at me and say that I'm a the worst podcast host in the world, or you love the podcast, or this is my suggestion, or whatever. We read them all, and we really appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much. So to get back to the nostalgia, and this was a nostalgic week in many different ways. And not only the Old Timers Day, it was not only the Old Timers Day. I had a conversation, lunch with a very amazing friend, and she said to me, Paulie, are you ever going to bring back Harry and Paul? And she was excited about the Odell book coming out. Snow on the Roof, the final Odell novel. Well, it looks like the release date's going to be either the 15th of August or the 16th of August. We're working on that. But she asked me about, Harry and Paul specifically. And I said, well, I don't think so. I ended up the series, but there is a hidden Harry and Paul novel that I never published. I wrote, it's about 300 pages and I put it in the PGH vault. So you never know, because she said, I love when you dwell on the nostalgia. And she said, did you ever Google yourself on AI? I was like, well, no, I said. So she picked up her phone and she did it. And the first thing that comes up is he specializes, John Hausleben is an American author, and he specializes in nostalgic and heartfelt remembrances. And that might be true. I mean, I kind of countered and said, Harry and Paul's nostalgic. She says, no, a lot of what you do is mired in memories of the past. And, with that conversation, and she's probably right. I mean, the New Jersey Christmas Tale / New Jersey Christmas Carol is certainly based upon a lot of my memories of Patterson and Haledon. And maybe I'll do a podcast on the memories of Haledon and Patterson. But the Old Timers game at Yankee Stadium, I can vividly remember. And I couldn't tune it in on the radio. They didn't have the actual play-by-play of the game. They play like an old-timers game. And this was the 2000 New York Yankees that won a world championship. So it's fairly recent in the big throw of Yankee history. They haven't won a championship in a few years now, but they do have 27. So that's amazing. But I can vividly remember my old man. He loved Old Timers Day. And he was such a fervent Yankee guy. He was so intense and knew so much about the Yankees, as does my cousin David. But the old man would sit in front of the TV, and the host on the field was this guy, Frank Messer, who was the Yankee announcer for years and years and years. Frank Messer, Bill White, and Phil Rizzuto. What a great trio they were. And Messer would do the on-field announcing and introductions, and he'd give like a little preamble. This Yankee player, he got a key hit in the 1964 World Series to drive in 2 runs and put the Yankees ahead, and blah blah. And even before Frank Messer would get to it, my old man would jump up and say, "Number 2, Bobby Richardson." And sure enough, Frank Messer would say, "Number 2, second baseman, Bobby Richardson." And Richardson trot out there onto the field. And my old man would know them all before they even get out there. So, the memories it brought back was outstanding. And as a side note, the great Susan Waldman, a pioneer, an absolute pioneer for women announcers in sports. She did an amazing job yesterday, and I couldn't hear the whole entirety of the show, but the play-by-play apparently was wonderful. And then as the actual New York Yankee game came on, and the Yankees won, thank goodness, various old-time New York Yankee folks would show up in the radio booth. And it was obvious the great affection they had for Susan Waldman. And Dave Sims is the new announcer for the Yankees, taking over from the great John Sterling. So he's kind of the new guy on the block, and the jury's still out on Dave. But with Susan, Joe Torre, Andy Pettitte came by, Bernie Williams came by, And they're having these discussions during the play-by-play, and it's obvious the affection they have and the respect they have for Susan Wallman. And I have to think when Susan Wallman finally decides to hang up the microphone, she belongs in the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, in my opinion, for broadcasters. She's a pioneer. All these onside beautiful girls, the sideline reporters, and all these folks, they owe a debt of gratitude to Susan Wallman for plowing the road to become a woman in such a prestigious position, doing the color of baseball with the New York Yankees. I have to think that Susan belongs in the Hall of Fame when she hangs up the mic, as does, in my opinion, John Sterling. But at any rate, it brought back all these memories. And then I was sitting after the game and thinking about my old man and growing up in the old house. And I thought to myself, there's so many things that inspire us to remember the good times, the memories. And I looked at my array of books, and yeah, I do dwell on that. I looked at my my music preferences, classic rock, but I think nostalgia is not so much about a place. It's not so much about 182 Belmont Ave. It's not so much about where you grew up. I think it's really about the feelings that those places, those experiences invoked within your heart and your mind and your soul. And I think one of the things that sticks in my mind are the sounds of my childhood, the sounds of the memories as they come back to life. These ordinary sounds that occurred every day as I grew up and even now. I mean, as you get older, your memories get more. They get increased, you get more memories. So even looking back on 10 years ago, I had a longtime employee for me this week, and we were together for almost 10 years, and she's moved on to a different position, and God bless her. And that was another layer of the nostalgia. I remembered, when she first started and all the good times. She was a fun person to work with. I loved her to death. And it made work fun. And I remembered all the funny things that happened to us and the crazy customers and the crazy experiences. And that's only, over the last 10 years or so. But it's nostalgia, you see, because I'm thinking back, it invoked these feelings in my heart. And I think of the sounds of my childhood. My old man sitting there yelling at the TV screen like the TV can talk back. Number 2, Bobby Richardson. It's those sounds of your childhood. And I think another Jersey guy who's a little more famous than I am, named Springsteen. Just a hairpin more famous. Thunder Road. And I'll do a podcast on Springsteen. He's a poet. I respect his writing ability. Maybe some of his melodies are, they're not exactly Billy Joel-like, but we'll talk about Springsteen. But Thunder Road, the screen door slams, Mary's dress waves. And, I have to think at some time, Bruce had a screen door that slammed on a house, and there was a pretty girl, and she walked out the door, and her dress was kind of waving in the wind. And that's nostalgia, and it's memories invoked in your heart and your mind and your soul. And I had a back door at 182 Belmont Avenue that I would give a lot of money to be able to sit in that kitchen again. And if the back door is still there, I know the house is still there, to hear that back door open and slam. And my old man to come walking through it, or my mother come walking through with dear mom carrying a thing of laundry that she put on the and the clothesline in the backyard. But the door had a distinct slam. And on the corner, just a few, half a city block away, was a Gulf gas station. And I mentioned it in the books quite a bit. Vince Baroni, Italian guy, ran the gas station. an old Golf, a classic nostalgia with the metal front and the windows and, the franchise specifications for how an old Golf station had to look. But I can remember he had two gas pumps out front. And distinctly, even though we grew up on a busy street and the city traffic's going by, blah, 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 but the gas station would stay open at I think till 9:00 just for gas. The services shut down. I mean, the mechanics went home. This is when gas stations pump gas and fix cars too. You talk about nostalgia, and it had one of those rubber ding dong bells, the rubber little cord that would go across the front of the gas pumps. And the nighttime guy was this guy named Matty. And Matty would go in, he'd be listening to the Yankee game inside the Golf station. And somebody would ride over the ding dong to come pull in and get gas, and Matty would jump up. And in my head, in my mind, sitting on the front stoop, or I'd be in the backyard, or even just sitting in my bedroom or the living room with the windows open in the summer, ding dong, and you knew somebody was pulling into the Golf station. The sounds of your childhood, just simple things, invoke all these memories. I just talked about the ding dong bell, and I remembered Matty, and I remembered him sitting inside in a kind of grungy office listening to the ball game on an old radio. And speaking of radios, how about this sound? The old table radio with the vacuum tubes. And of course, me being a radio guy, radio's my life, big part of it. You click the little on off. It was like a ceramic knob. I can see the old radio my parents had, and the crackle. The little crackle, the dial lights would light up, and a little crackle of the speaker as the tubes warmed up. And whatever radio station it had been previously tuned to suddenly comes to life. Blah, 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 blah. It starts to warm up, and you start to get the audio, and the radio's working, and all of a sudden you hear it. But that hiss and crackle. And in the summer, when there's a thunderstorm coming, right? You could actually hear the crackles and the pops of the lightning, even though the storm might have been miles away. The hiss of an old table radio. How about this sound? And this sound a lot of people will never experience again. I got to make a phone call. And you go over to the payphone, you take the coins out of your pocket and you put it in the little slot, and the sound that those coins make as they drop down into the phone, ding, 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 a distinctive sound. Or you could buy a pack of cigarettes way back then in those machines. And we didn't have a lot of smokers in my family, but my buddy Jeff Porter from the books, his parents were smokers, and they'd send us on a beer, not a beer run, we're too young, cigarette run. Nobody would question you. You go to the food town, you put some coins and you pull a little lever, and it had a distinctive sound. And then, and a little pack of cigarettes would fall on the thing there. And for years and years, hanging in my kitchen in our family home was a rotary phone before it went to push button. And you put your finger in the little dial. Zhoo, do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Zhoo, do-do-do-do-do-do. And then if you had a number that was closer to the end of the dial, it wouldn't make as much sound as the number 2 or the number 1 would, because it had to come all the way back. You're dialing a rotary phone with a little plastic or metal dial. These sounds of your childhood, these sounds of growing up, ordinary everyday sounds. My old man coming home from work, putting a lunchbox on the shelf above the washing machine in the kitchen, opening the refrigerator, popping a top off a beer, and then sitting down and picking up his Patterson Evening News. And he had a way of picking up the newspaper, and it was stuck together because they had those little perforations, and he'd shake it, right? He'd shake the paper, cross his legs, and say to everybody, so what's going on today? And he'd start thumbing through, going to the sports page first. But the distinctive sound that newspaper made still stuck in my mind. And it's just amazing how you remember these distinctive sounds of your childhood. And growing up on a city bus line was an amazing experience too, because I could lay in my bed in my bedroom, and even in the wintertime had special noises. The wintertime had special noises. But in the summertime, I could tell the time by the city bus going up and down Belmont Ave, the number 14 public service bus, because it ran pretty much on schedule. Yeah, it might be a few minutes behind, but you knew the 9:15, you knew the 9:45, you knew the 10 o'clock, you knew the bus line. And the bus stop was right on the corner outside my house. So you would hear the bus stop, and you'd hear them pick up speed and merge into traffic. And in the wintertime, I could sit in my bedroom and lay in my bed, not even have to look out the window and know when it snowed overnight. Because the first city bus, the number 14, which I think started at 5 in the morning, they put tire chains on the old tires. So the bus tires you'd hear the rattle of the chain. And then I'd say, oh man, okay, it snowed overnight. The bus has got the chains on. Maybe there's no school today. Yeah. and then the city snowplows would come, and you'd hear them, shifting gears, going through gears, and then the blade, the drop of the blade would scrape along the ground to make a distinctive noise. And you could even almost tell if it was a deep snow or just a light snow by the sound of the snowplow, because you wouldn't hear it so much when it was plowing the deep snow as you could when it was just a light snow. Didn't have to plow as much. And it was silent when it was deep. They were taking, pushing a lot of different snow there. And then here's one, and Harry and Jeffrey and maybe other folks, I have to ask Lydia if over in Queens, she grew up in Queens and Brooklyn, if they had this. And I mentioned this one to my buddy Jeff the other day when we were solving all the world's problems early in the morning. And it's 2 words: move up. And that's the city trash people coming through our neighborhood. And they were union guys, and they started about 5 in the morning, maybe even 4 o'clock in the morning. And you'd put your trash barrels out. And back then they were metal trash barrels. And they'd come along, pick up the trash, they'd empty it in the back of the trash truck, and they'd throw your metal cans, which used to tick my old man off because they dent them all up. They dent them when they smashed them on the metal of the of the garbage truck, and then they chuck them in our driveway, bling bling bling, and then they'd yell, "Move up!" And that was for the truck driver. Put the truck in gear and go up to the next stop. So I woke up many mornings. They'd wake the entire neighborhood up with their squawking and yelling. And my father would always lecture me because taking out the trash, taking out the garbage was my job. Don't push the garbage down too tight, because that big guy, Tony Buffoni, he smashes my trash cans if it's too tight and he can't get it out. And it dents him up, and I need a new trash can. Nostalgia. The sounds and the simple memories, the simple things it invokes. And yeah, I think Harry and Paul adventures are full of them. And I think everybody has their own memories associated with the sounds of their childhood or whatever, be it the back door, the sound of your father's footsteps on stairs, or the sound of your grandmother's voice, or her stirring the sauce on a Sunday afternoon. All these memories, all these simple sounds that now you'd give $1 million to hear again. So it was a nostalgic week. And I appreciate everybody tuning into this podcast. I hope it invoked you to maybe think of your own memories, your own sounds, your own childhood coming back to you. And now we're making new memories. Hopefully we're all around 10 years from now and we can think back at this time and remember things. So yeah, nostalgia is the olden days, if you want to call it that, but it's also the new days, because right now you're creating new memories, you're creating new experiences, and that's part of the magic of life. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I would love to hear a list of your own sounds, your own nostalgic sounds and memories of your own childhoods, and you can email them to me, and I'd appreciate sharing them. So hey, be kind, be gentle, be tolerant. Kindness is cheap and kindness is for free, and please share it. And hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey, but thank you so much, and we appreciate it. Let me figure out how to get these folks out of here now, and because I don't want to have to feed them. Hey, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now.